Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, we're back with another Alpha Clash video here. We're going to have some fun. We're going to do the age-old infamous tier list that every TCG content creator does at least 5-10 times a year. And this one's going to be fun because the game hasn't even came out yet. So we know that this tier list is for fun. So we'll get right into it. So if you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're a long-standing supporter, I really appreciate it. If you're new and you found me through looking for Alpha Clash content, feel free to join the Discord down below. I have over 400 members in there from Flesh and Blood and now Alpha Clash, and we have a really good community. And then if you stick around long enough and you feel like you want to support the channel a different way, check out the Patreon, where my videos usually go up a day early if you're a Tier 2 member, and then Tier 1 is just for good general support. And all money, of course, goes right back into getting stuff for the channel. So yeah, we're going to get right into it. And tier list, they're always fun. People always have opinions. The good thing about this tier list and the fun thing is the game hasn't even came out yet, right? We're still in the early stages. Cards being revealed, gameplay is being revealed, things of that nature, or cards have been revealed. And so this is just going to be opinion based. It's just going to be for fun. I have played with each deck in Goldfish and done other stuff, looked at all the cards, done like deep dives on the archetypes as much as I can, built the decks. I just actually built my Mean Street deck here from some of the cards I've got. Been messing with that. And so overall, this is really just going to be my knowledge playing card games mixed in with my research into the game and what I think is going to be good. And I'm not going to have S tier, as you can see, or A tier or anything like that. I think these contenders really go into their own buckets. And we'll kind of get into that here. So the first one I have is skill-based. I think that this means like this so like the bottom line for this before I do anything is all these contenders are winnable. There is no like feels bad contender in this list. Like even if I gave you what I consider to be the weakest contender, which is Moxie, Moxie can still win. I don't know the exact win percentages yet, but she feels very winnable into every contender. There's no like auto losses yet, at least from my opinion, especially at like an early level. And I just think that really every contender is viable. So because of that, I made the tier list the way it is. So this one is skill-based, which basically means you have to have good skill mechanics as a TCG player, right? It's very much knowing your deck, knowing how it plays, knowing what's in your deck, and being able to make calculated decisions based off that. It's not just about deck power or matchup or cards you draw. You actually have to be able to have good mechanics to win with this deck. This deck isn't just going to win by throwing cards down. You're actually going to know how to play your deck at a reasonable level from a general TCG perspective. The second one is easy to win with. This one is very much, you can win with this deck if you just slap cards down. You play the deck how it's supposed to be played. You don't have to make any crazy maneuvers or any combat tricks. You just throw the deck down and it can win because of its natural power level or natural ability. Third is requires mechanics. So similar to skill-based, whereas skill-based is you have to know your deck really well. This requires certain mechanics from like a value perspective, like knowing how to trade value on damage, knowing when to swing, when not to swing, having a basic understanding of TCGs is needed to win with this deck. If you're just like really new to the game, not only new to the game, but new to card games, at first you might struggle a little bit with this deck just because it does require a certain level of mechanics to win. And then can win, but hard, which means their power level is just a little bit lower. It doesn't mean they're out of the meta by any means. I generally think if you had a competition today with like 32 players in Alpha Clash, I think any one of these heroes could take it if the person is skilled enough and they draw the right cards. And that's less than you can say about some card games in set one or early on. So we'll get right into it. The first one we're going to do is, let's see, we'll pick here. First one we're going to do is Magnate. I think Magnate's the easiest to understand. Magnate is easy to win with. Magnate's initial ability at 30 life is your alpha cards get +1 defense, and then at 10 life you can engage Magnate or rest him in order to make your opponent discard a card once per turn on your turn. Very simple mechanics. There's no combat tricks with Magnate. A lot of his traps are based to fight against Moxie because of the thematics of the lore. He doesn't have any like reactions or buffs other than his normal buff that really is going to like throw you off guard, both from reducing the opponent's damage or buffing his own. It's really like he's just going to throw big Clash cards down and buff them and win, right? And he's a contender where you can just kind of throw stuff down and win the game, but he's also a contender where, because it's so easy, you can tech against him, in my opinion, especially when people start really getting the game in their hands. And if you fall behind with him, you don't have a lot of combat tricks or a lot of things to kind of get you out of jail. You're kind of just behind, to be honest. He doesn't have like a gotcha mechanic, to be honest. So that's him, and that's where I put him. Mean Streak is a requires mechanics contender for sure. The streak counters, right? Once his 30 life is once per turn, you're able to move any number of streak counters from one clash card you control to another, and then his 10 and then if one dies, whenever a clash card is defeated, it triggers a draw card, and then his 10 life is clash. I had to read it just to make sure. Clash cards you control with one or more streak counters gets 1/1 and super speed, which is really powerful at 10 or less life. Basically, your clash cards get +1/1, 1/1, and first strike, which is really nice. However, managing your clash, your streak counters is almost like managing like equipment or managing certain mechanics in other card games. You have to know like when you're going to swing with a card, when you're going to defend with it. Should a card have a lot of counters on it? Is that card susceptible to removal in the game? If it is, should you be stacking counters on it, right? Like in this game right now, there's a lot of 2 or less removal for cost at like targeting cards for 2 or less. There's a couple 3 or less, and then there's like 1 or 2 that are 4 or more. And so you have to be aware of that, right? And then there's 1 or 2 cards that's just like unconditional removal. And you have to be aware of that, because if I put a 2 drop down and I put 5 counters on it because I'm trying to swing one time, they can remove it, right? Because there's a lot of 2 or less removal, and you have to be aware of that. You have to be aware of the game, aware of the mechanics, know how to play him. He is very good, in my opinion. He's one of the best decks in the format. If I had to pick, like if you made me do a tier list, he'd probably be the second best contender in my opinion. But he does require mechanics to win, so that's kind of where he is. Then you have Clarity. Clarity's skill based. Because Clarity's abilities are opt abilities, and just for anyone that's not aware, and I'll do the exact wording because this one's a little bit, if you don't know TCGs, you're going to have to read this exactly. At the beginning of your draw step, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck, then put any number of them from the bottom of your deck on the bottom of your deck, and the rest on top of your deck in any order. So basically, you opt 2 cards before you draw for your turn. You pick if you want to put one on top, one on bottom, or both on top in any order, and then you draw a card. So basically, you get to pick your draw, which is really, really good. And then our 10 or less is once per turn during your primary phase, you may look at the top 3 cards of your deck. If you do, put them back at the top of your deck in any order, then draw 1 card. So that one's kind of a scry ability, not an opt ability, where you can't put them on the bottom, you only can put them back on top. But again, you get to pick your draw. So because of that, you need to know, like, what threats do I have that I need right now? Which ones do I not need? If I sink this card, how many are left in my deck? What's the chances of me seeing that type of card again, right? If you are on turn 3 and you look at a 6 drop on top of your deck, you're like, okay, I'm about 3 turns away from being able to pay for this. I only have 2 in my deck. I've been through 15 out of 50 of my cards. You know, what's the I have 35 cards left in my deck. What's the likelihood of me seeing that second card? And you have to think about that kind of stuff. You have to know your deck very well. You also have to know how many turns do I have left in this game. Based off life totals and my opponent and what they're doing, do I have the turns to be able to play this card, you know? So it's a very skill-based hero. However, I think at a high level, Clarity is going to be the best contender in the format. I think Clarity, honestly, the devs made Clarity as an ode to really good players. I think really good players who know their decks are going to be able to play Clarity at an extremely efficient level. And the thing with Clarity is you can literally use her in any color, because the fact that her ability isn't tied to a certain type of card or a certain type of mechanic, it's just opt. You could play, you know, white-blue Clarity with a lot of control. You could play white-red Clarity or white-green Clarity with a lot of aggro-based stuff. You know, you could play white-black Clarity, which has a little bit of the life gain and weapon mechanic that also goes to her weapons. There's so many things you can play with Clarity. So it's very skill-based, and I think the top players are going to be rewarded for playing her properly. Then you have Moxie. Moxie can win, but hard. Definitely a little bit difficult. I think she's my favorite contender and one that I'm going to be hardcore testing. But you're going to have to play properly. She is a mid to late game hero. She's about stacking all of her weapons, keeping her key threats alive, and then basically like OTKing her opponent. If you ever played an OTK deck in any TCG game, she's not quite true OTK, but she's as close as it is in this game. And anyone knows with a OTK or 1-turn kill deck or 2-turn kill deck, you have to assemble like Exodia properly, right? You can't really slip. And if you slip, you die, because that's your only way of winning, because she's not going to, you can pair her with green and a little bit of blue to try to A, slow the opponent down, or B, have better threats in the early game. But regardless, she's going to require some finesse to win, and you really can't make a mistake. If you're coming from Flesh and Blood in my community, she's the Kano, right? She's very powerful when playing against the right deck, and if she gets her combo off and she plays the late, like Kano before Ether Wildfire, and if she plays her late game, she just obliterates you, but she's got to get to that point. So there's that. And then we have Torque, the Diabolical. Torque is hard. So I think Torque does have some required mechanics, but he's closer to easier to win. He's really in between this, to be honest. If you're watching this live, he's really in between this. I'd have to say he's more easy to win. So Torque has some combos with Here Comes the Boom, with Solar Flare, where he basically can buff his own cards to kill things and just burst people for damage. And you do have to have a certain amount of mechanics to know like the sequencing of when to do things. But other than like sequence practice, he doesn't require any like crazy base level TCG mechanic knowledge to play. He is kind of a pick up and play deck because his combos aren't difficult. They're not like, you have intuitive combos, which is like, okay, this naturally makes sense. You would play this card to do this. And then there's some combos where you're like, man, I had to really think about how that interaction works and, you know, really play it correctly in order to do well. And he's not like that. A lot of his combos are very intuitive. The sequencing is what's not always intuitive. But I would say he's more easy to play with and requires mechanics, but he definitely can be there. So that's kind of where we're at. With this, I think that we're in a good spot. If you made me just for fun, because I know everyone wants to do this, if I reset my thing, right, if we just do the stereotypical tier list here, I think there's 3 tiers right now. I think Clarity and probably Mean Streak are your top 2 contenders. We'll see if I'm right in 3 months. This will be fun. I think that Torque is your next highest, and then Magnate's probably at the end of the B, and then you have A, and then Moxie's in B. I think that's the power level. So like if they're all on the same level, right, just for argument's sake, this is kind of where I would put them as in terms of how good they are. But that's, again, without knowing all of the freaking, all of the stuff in the game, all of the mechanics, all the unknown stuff that we don't know that the devs have practiced, because I can assure you they're probably 1 or 2 sets ahead right now as far as like playtesting. So this is where I would put it, to be honest. So let me know what you think. I think it's super fun to talk about, super fun to discuss, right? Because it's not really serious. The game hasn't even came out yet. I just want to get the community's thoughts on it and, you know, see what y'all think. But yeah, if you enjoy this type of content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If not me, go to another creator that plays Alpha Clash or Flesh and Blood. Leave a like, comment, subscribe on their stuff so we can get more people seeing card games and these games in general. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk. Thank y'all so much. Have a good day.